Everyone, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Tonight is Woke Wednesdays. We have a very special episode tonight. We have a very special guests on the show tonight. So would y'all like to? I guess I should introduce myself. My name is Herson. We do this every single Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Last time we had a phenomenal episode. We had Hispanic high school children, juniors and seniors on the show. It was beautiful, talking about why representation matters. But tonight we have a very powerful show. And if you would like to introduce yourselves, who would like to go first?
Go ahead, Debo.
Dwayne. My name is Dwayne. South Florida native, Lauderdale, Florida.
What do you do? What do you do, man?
I'm an intelligence analyst. Work in law enforcement. Can't say exactly what I do, but I'm an intelligence analyst. I don't want to throw all that out there. And definitely a proud father.
And you're also a member of a very special, the oldest.
The oldest and the coldest.
The coldest, the boldest.
Alpha Phi Alpha.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And on my right hand, we got somebody else.
Good evening, everyone. I'm George South. I'm an attorney. I'm also from South Florida. Grew up in Miami and relocated to Lauderhill in high school. Have been there since.
And what you do, man?
I'm an attorney. I'm not gonna go into depth.
Okay.
That's all.
I gotta show y'all off, man. Because this is.
And I also happen to be a proud member of Alpha Phi Alpha.
There you go.
Fraternity
There you go.
Incorporated.
Absolutely.
You know, it's crazy. So one of the reasons I always ask people what they do is because a lot of young people tune in, and I love for them to see people who look like them, who maybe come from the same place as they do, and see what like these people out here doing big things. That means I can do these things too. So that's one of the reasons. I know y'all superstars, so we're not gonna ask too many more questions about that stuff. But that's one of the reasons, and so I love y'all saying that. But if this is your first time tuning into Woke Wednesdays, please feel free to ask questions. Pose any comments, whatever you'd like to know. These gentlemen are brilliant. They're more than capable to answer any questions that you have. I'm a hype man, I'm a hype man.
I see that. You good.
Hype y'all up, man. Hype y'all up.
Our personal DJ Cam all the
I
way
got y'all. So tonight we're talking about Black fatherhood, and I was hoping that we could just kind of start with this kind of the basics. What was, and y'all feel free to ask questions. What was your first reaction when you found out that you were about to be a father? What was kind of like the first thing that kind of went through your head? Whoever would like to go.
For me, I was scared. I mean, just to keep it real, because I didn't grow up with a father. I had two older brothers who spent a majority of their life with our father. But for me, I was frightened. I had no idea. Like, I didn't have any roadmap. I take that back. I had a roadmap of what I knew I didn't want to do. But I was terrified. I was raised by my mom, so I had a good foundation. But as far as raising a kid, I had, and then when I found out it was a girl, I was even more terrified.
It could be a little scary.
So I can say I was honestly frightened.
I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna ask you a question about that. But yeah, go ahead.
Mine was a bit of the opposite. I started off being overjoyed because that was one of my biggest goals. I've always wanted to have kids. I've always just loved kids, wanted to reproduce, wanted to have a seed. And I wanted to have the relationship that my dad had with me. So I look forward to that. I embraced it. It wasn't until they actually got here and I was taking them home from the hospital that the fear hit me. Like driving home with them in the car was terrifying. Probably the scariest thing I've done.
Wow.
And mind you, I love driving. But having
you got that white Beamer,
yeah. But having two little lives in the car with me was absolutely terrifying. Knowing that I'm taking them home, they're my responsibility now. It was a bit much.
Yeah. So you had two at the same time.
Yeah.
You had twins.
Correct.
Little boy, little girl.
Yes.
So. And these are brand new babies. They just
3 months old.
Fresh out
tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Wow.
Yeah.
So when Cicero said, "Hey," especially having a girl, you agreed with him.
Yeah.
So I'm just kind of curious, what kind of came through your mind when you found out it was a girl?
I mean, I was afraid, but I was overjoyed. I mean, it's a culmination of emotions. You really don't know how to put it all together. I mean, it's just one of those things. And while I had a little bit of that fear, my mom owns a daycare. So, granted, I've been around children and babies and infants and toddlers my entire life. My mom, I'm 38. My mother still runs a daycare.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
She started when I was born. So I've been around kids my entire life. So while I knew I was confident, I was still frightened. And then knowing that it was a girl, you know, because I'm a guy, so I'm thinking, you know, forward. I'm thinking forward. Oh my goodness! And now, you know, she's double digits. She turns 10 in December, and you know, and that's huge. And then, you know, as life has kind of progressed, you know, in my current situation, my lady, we also have a 5-year-old, so we've got a blended family now. She's also a girl, so you know, it's interesting when you come home and you're the only guy in the house, and there's just estrogen everywhere. So you know, I envy George a little bit because he's got that boy in the mix, but you know, it is what it is.
Well, in my case, I had always prayed for a son. I wanted a boy, but my conscience started to bother me a bit. Like, man, with all this prayer, the Lord might give me a surprise. It might be a little princess. So I started to embrace the thought of having a girl as the time drew near. Then once we found out the gender, ended up being blessed with both, which was the best of both worlds. Because I know, ideally, I said, I wanted, you know, twin boys for sports, things like that. But having both and seeing them, I wouldn't have it any other way. And I know the missus, she was overjoyed. When she found out it was twins, she was a little concerned. Like, man, this is going to be 2 boys. But once she found out one was a girl, that was it. Face lit up.
Man, so I see a lot of new folks tuning in right now. Tonight's topic is Black fatherhood, and we're kind of asking them we're starting with these basic questions about what you felt like when you first found out you were having a baby. So if this is your first time tuning in, please feel free to ask questions and post comments. So you find out that you're having children, right? Like what next? So now they're home, all right? Little babies, innocent, just precious. I think you use the word fragile.
Yeah.
Like what was that even? So like I'm not a person who really wants to have children. That's not really for me. If anything, I'll adopt one day, but to actually have, that's not really my thing. So to me, this is all like very like wow, like I'm learning a lot. So like what was it like when now they're home? All right, like first day from the hospital, first couple weeks, first couple months, like
Terrifying. You hear horror stories. The nurses in the hospital, they'll tell you, you know, you got to make sure that they're breathing, make sure nothing's covering their face. Just if they roll over, they could get sudden infant death syndrome. Like there's a lot of SIDS. There's a lot of
they got a little
things.
thing, right? You got a little soft thing right here.
Yeah, the soft spot in their head. It's just so many little things that prior to having one, you don't think about it. And then when they're here, like, man, this is a fragile little person that I have to take care of. They're my responsibility.
Right.
I have to make sure that they're good. It's a lot.
Yeah. I mean, you like I said, for me, that part was a little bit different, just having been around that environment for a while. But there is a small piece of that is still outside of that bubble because it's now your responsibility. I mean, I think just to kind of broadly put, you see your lens changes. You walk in and you're looking at things differently, a way that you've never looked at them before. You want to make sure things are child-proof. You know, I remember like I had rubber cushions on everything pointy. You know, any tables I had
outlets are covered.
Outlets covered, the little sockets in the outlet. I mean, and then you know, as a man, you know, you almost soften instantly because it's it's your children. So you struggle with that because you walk in the house and you're like, you know, and then you it's just it's crazy. I have a frat brother who is in my chapter, and I was looking on his Facebook page the other day, and he was at an event with his daughter. His daughter's maybe 5 or 6. She's getting ready to enter kindergarten. He was allowing her to paint his beard different colors, and I mean that's the kind of place you find yourself in, especially when you come home with an infant daughter and then they start growing. I mean, and then even with your son, you know, we have all these myths. You're like, oh, you know, I'm you know, it's gonna be tough. And It goes out of the window a little bit, when you have a child.
Does it look like you got a question?
We got a question. Yeah, I was gonna let you go. But we can. Ashley, Delta Sigma Theta. Okay. Ashley is asking, why are boys desired over girls? Is it because same gender connection, or is there a fear of having to protect a girl through womanhood, i.e., girl teens equal dad's shotgun, boy teens equals dad's blessing to date? Does that make sense?
It's a bit of both. I mean, if we're gonna be honest, having a son, like I said earlier, it's just about that relationship, like going out to play ball. Granted, I can do that with my daughter too, and I intend to. I mean, her mom's an athlete, so that's
right.
That's gonna happen. Yeah. And I mean, it's just one of those things. I guess I never quite looked at it that way. The gender connection, like, yeah, this is a little me exactly like me, same exact thing. Because I know people look at me, they mix me up with my dad all the time. So I guess that does have a part.
Genes.
And
y'all got good genes.
Yeah.
I got tight jeans.
But a part of it, is that extra protection that you have to provide, or feel that you have to provide. I mean, being a man, you have to protect your woman and your children regardless. But having a little girl, it does something different to you.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's namesake as well.
Yeah.
I mean, because traditionally, what we've seen is that when our daughters marry, they change their last name. And in more recent years, you've seen that not be the norm so much. You have more hyphenated names. Yeah. So I think a large part of what I've seen and experienced has been from the namesake perspective. And to speak a little bit of, being a protector and dealing with the piece of, just girl issues. Like I said, my daughter's getting ready to turn 10 in December. So we just did a bone age test because we had some a bone age test.
What's
so
that?
they x-ray her hand, and it tells them basically how old her body feels it is. Huh. And so at the time she was 9, and the bone age test came back and said that she was 11, about to touch 12. So we're at the onset of puberty. You have all these, different things going on. And as a father, you're saying, hey, when you go in, you take a shower, make sure, you got a spot check, make sure you this, that, and that. Man. And if you're not a comfortable man, if you that can be a challenge for some people. Yeah. And so all those things are important, but I think you start building that type of relationship early on, and it's not as much of a challenge as as you progress in the years go by. So I felt like if I can continue to try to build that strong, sound relationship early on, as she gets a little older, as either one of them get a little older, that they won't feel like they can't come to me with things. I wanted this to be able to stay open.
Yeah.
I feel like I do a bone check like every morning. I can't get up quite like I used to.
Bone age test.
You're too young.
Yeah.
You're too young.
I'm gonna judge you for your size. Shit, you're like 11.
Hey.
Nah, I'm just messing with you, bro.
All right, so we got another question. If the question has not been asked yet, do you think that your father not being present has made you a stronger parent? And then you can also answer this in a different way.
Yes, I mean, I would say yes. I think, a lot of times in those situations, people have looked at it in just that way, more from a negative standpoint. But for me, I see it as a positive, because there could have been some things that I had taken for granted had he been there consistently. Mm-hmm. And so I would definitely say yes, it played a role in me being, wanting to be what he wasn't, or what he wasn't to me, because I can sit down and talk to my brothers, and my brothers are 10 and 12 years older than me, and so their outlook and their perspective of their relationship with my father is completely different from mine. So it definitely played a role in the way I father and the way I parent now.
Personally, I can't really attest to that. I haven't experienced that because my dad's pretty much my best friend. Like, I can go to him and talk to him about anything. I even talked to him about this episode. Like, hey,
we should have had him on too.
What you think I should talk about?
I didn't think about it. Yeah,
it's a little different for me. But having friends, cousins that grew up without their fathers and seeing the difference, it can definitely affect you. But for most people that I know, it seemed to have made them want to be even better men, better fathers. They want to give their child something that they didn't have. So I have noticed positives. I guess it all depends on perspective on how you want to look at it.
I was wondering if you could shed a little bit more light too on being comfortable as a man to address certain things when you have a daughter, right? Because I think even like in movies you'll see how like maybe they'll portray the man as being uncomfortable being able to buy pads or tampons, like, you know, for their person, for their spouse, partner, or whatever. But this, like, you have to be very secure, very comfortable, knowledgeable on things that maybe like you didn't have to before. Right. So what process is that like? And this thing that you'll also have to, you know, eventually have to, you know, I don't want to say deal with, but also like learn. So can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's ironic that you bring that up because just recently, you know, we had that whole scare of like, hey, Dad, I've got this spot in my underclothes. What's going on? And she was super cool about it. Like it kind of kept me calm because she didn't freak out. And, you know, I found myself in the grocery store saying, hey, you know, like, this is what it is. Let's grab this. I mean, and, you know, to give a little back data, I've been married for 13 years and divorced. And so now we're co-parenting. And so, you know, it adds another dynamic to it because then you have to reach out to the other parent to say, hey, you know, strangely enough, this happened under my watch while she
I was just about to ask you that.
It happened while she was with me. So, you know, I'm calling her mom and I'm saying, hey, this is what happened and, you know, blah, 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 or whatever. And so, of course, you know, with her being a woman, she's saying, hey, well, you know, they have teen this and teen that and blah, 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 blah. I'm like, okay, yeah, I think I got it. You know, and I was cool with it. And I think it helped me because my daughter was cool. You know, she wasn't, you know, whatever. And we just kind of, I think you learn your child's personality. She understands when I'm talking to her as dad, and then she understands when I'm talking to her as like, hey, I'm talking to you now as a friend. Like we can let's communicate.
Like
but
that.
then she understands. She understands when it's business.
I like support. I like that.
That helps. Yeah. It helps.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
You have a very good question there.
Yeah, man. I feel like, go ahead.
No.
I
just
can hold this. I can hold the wine.
I just have to see it.
I'm just. You know, he's got a multitask as an attorney.
I just like to know what's coming up.
Ashley's asking, having experienced fatherhood, do you recommend parenting classes or counseling for future parents?
Most definitely, because I can attest to the fact that when my fiance was pregnant and she started going to classes on breastfeeding and things like that, I learned so much, things that I had no idea about as far as how many hours out of the day the babies actually eat. Like it's like every 2 hours.
Yeah. What?
Prior to
they
going
eat every 2 hours.
Because it's, you know, breast milk is like
it's liquid, so it's just it runs right through them.
What the hell?
Prior to going to the parenting course, I had no idea. Just simple little things like that to kind of get your mind ready.
Yeah.
That way it's not just, you're not in the moment having to experience it and wondering what's going on.
Yeah, I agree. My mom is very old school, Georgia born and raised.
Oh, she's Southern.
Southern all day.
Okay.
And so, you know, the plus for me is that I grew up in that environment where I saw this happening and I was around it. But I remember, you know, what to expect when expecting. You know, so I've got the book, you know, First Time Fathers, you know, and my mom at the time was living in Tallahassee. She's like, all right, you know, keep letting Dr. Spock raise your kids. She's like, you don't need a book to tell you how to, you know, but it's just, it's how the generations have changed because there are so many things and wives' tales and different myths that they live by that probably get the authorities called on us now if we do those same things.
You got to put a little whiskey when the teeth coming out, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I did that, but you know, I mean, you know, the thing is, you know, I think it's a combination of everything. I think at the end of the day, what's important is that some sort of guidance for parenting helps. Yeah. So whether it's a class, reading a book, not being too ashamed to ask somebody, say, hey, I don't know what I'm doing. Yeah. So that may come in the way of a class or a book or whatever, but definitely if you got some qualms about it, ask. I mean, it's
however, be aware that you're not gonna like all the answers that you get.
Absolutely.
There will be those people that will be in your ear giving you advice, and you're not gonna agree with everything.
I be giving people advice. I'm not even a father.
Yeah,
I'm just, hey, spank them, spank them. And they're like, Hurst, you're not even. Hey, man, that's what I would do.
You have to pick and choose. I mean, your instincts kick in. You'll know what's suitable. But if you have, like Dwayne said, if you have questions, most definitely ask. I'm inquisitive as it is, so I ask questions left and right. I go and read. I bought a how-to manual on babies. Yeah. Everybody saw it and like, bro, what is that? Yeah. It's a how-to manual. I don't know how to do certain things, so I need to have some kind of guidance. Yeah. I don't want to.
That's crazy.
You want some varied perspectives, man. You definitely want some varied perspectives on it. Yeah.
So real quick, we got a lot of folks tuning in. Y'all, if this is your first time tuning into Woke Wednesdays, we do this every single Wednesday, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Tonight we're talking about being a black father. Shout out to all the UNCG Chants campers that are tuning in tonight. Y'all are amazing. Love y'all. DJ Push Play, my deuce, is on here.
What up, Sam?
Joe's on here. So we have a question. What is your perspective on being a single father? And also, and we can also ask, what is your perspective on not being married and being a father? Because that's something also that our society tends to think about as important.
Yeah, well, I mean, while I'm not single, I have not remarried, so I think it's always important. It's been helpful to have additional perspective, but I can say there's still a small part of it where you almost have to operate as a single parent, so to speak, because there are certain things that you have to deal with, and it happens even with my lady when she has to deal with her daughter's father as well, because there are certain lines that you don't cross. There are certain things that you kind of have to let those parents handle, and you kind of have to you learn when to step in, when to back off, and those pieces. But I just think it speaks greater to the testament of you being a father. It doesn't give you an out. It forces you to not lean on excuses, and to be there and to be accountable. And when I was thinking about this, when Hurston asked me about it, and it actually came up like many moons ago, and then he had an opportunity for some other stuff to slide in, and then we circled back to it. I just thought about all the young ladies that I either met, were friends with, or came across who kind of dealt with daddy issues. And I felt that it was so important for me to be present consistently. So even on days, I have a shared parenting plan. So even on the days when my daughter's not with me, I'm still a father. It doesn't mean I get to take a day off. Yeah. I'm a father every day. Not only that, I still have my lady's daughter here. So, and that's a process, because, she's kind of like, I want to build that relationship. Today I do, but tomorrow I don't. And you kind of have to rock with that. You kind of have to let them guide where that goes.
Absolutely.
There was you asked about not
it's alright, bro. I know you want to read these questions, so it's alright, bro.
I was reading.
You good, bro. Go ahead.
You asked me a good one before.
We can come back to it if you want.
No, because I'll forget.
Alright, go ahead. So the question was also being a father that's not married, and you can anyone. So because that's something that our society, especially if you go to church and stuff, it's like being married or having a child out of wedlock. I think that's like the terminology that people use, as if sometimes a marriage is good, because a lot of folks that that's another topic. Yeah. That's another topic for another day.
Bring me back for that one.
So what is it like? Also, I guess having a child out of wedlock or not being married. It's just like hearing things from other people. Does this even go through your mind? It's like, nah, bro, I don't even think about that. So
I feel like for other people, it's something that they look at a lot more than I do. Because I know personally, I wouldn't have gotten my fiance pregnant if I wasn't going to marry her. So I know marriage is coming. It's just a matter of finances, getting things in order. We have kids now that we have to take care of. So I'm getting things in order. I have a game plan, but professionally, it has been.
Also, this is a game to you.
It has. I'm kidding. It has been a bit awkward with colleagues, because as an attorney, it's a prestigious career. So most people, you know, they typically wait. Most lawyers wait until they're a bit older to have kids, and they're usually married, well settled. So the fact that I'm still in my 20s and unmarried is a little. It raises some eyebrows, but I personally don't really care as long as I'm happy. My lady's happy.
Yeah.
Kids are healthy.
They're safe.
That's all I'm worried
absolutely.
about. I know that the marriage is coming. She knows that it's coming.
Right.
That's all I really worry about. But as far as the onlookers, that can be a little uncomfortable sometimes.
Right.
Like you can see the discomfort sometimes when they're not sure how to refer to her. They're, how's your wife,
Fiance,
girlfriend? Like they don't know what to refer to her
None of your
as.
business.
So pretty much. But it's uncommon, I guess, in my field. So that has made it a little awkward.
Yeah.
But I mean, I personally don't really care.
And it's still all about perspective, man, because, you know, on the flip side of that, I did it the exact opposite way. And here I am still, after 13 years, still divorced. I got married when I was 23.
Wow. Okay.
Married when I was 23.
You jumped in there early. Yeah.
Our reactions. I meant our reactions though. My fault, bro. Say that again. I'll have a better reaction. My fault.
It's cool. And was married 5 years before we had a kid.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's kind of like what you said about you'll get advice about parenting.
Yeah.
But it's not going to always be what you want to hear. It's the same thing. You kind of have to, it has to be your timetable, what works for you, you know, and what works for you and your lady and your family. You know, you can't let everybody else write your story.
Yeah.
So, you want to say something?
No, go ahead.
So Ash has a question. Is there a real difference between being a black father versus being a Latino father, white father? How do you feel race affects you as a father? Y'all trying to go there right now. Okay, I was gonna say that for later.
I was waiting for that.
Question, y'all trying to go there now.
That's why I've been looking down at the questions.
I don't see color. So
I see. I mean, you know what? People always say they don't see color, right? We'll talk about it.
It's a
it's
joke.
kind of like an oxymoron.
It's a joke. I see too much.
But I mean, I think being a minority father, period, is definitely different from being a white father. The looks that I get when I'm at school functions, when I show up, not in what they expect me to be wearing, when I have on a tie and a blazer and I'm headed to work.
You be clean too.
Yeah.
I try, bro.
You got the
Alpha
pocket
man.
square,
Hey, man.
got the
You know,
lapel pin,
Hey,
got the freshly pressed suit. Man, shoes shining.
That's how we made in the brotherhood. That's how we made.
Clean,
but,
okay.
You know, it's showing up for conferences. They don't expect that. My daughter's also, she's a girl. She's in Girl Scouts. So I remember like going to
what
Girl
did she not do, bro?
That's what I was gonna ask.
Bro,
taking her to Girl Scouts, and the other mothers are there like for real. I'm like, yeah, like this. You know, we have to be present. So I think it's different because the expectation is that we're not present. Minority fathers, period. That we don't play an active role. That we don't go to PTA and SAC meetings and are involved in, you know, whatever. My signatures on my daughter's work every night she's with me. I'm checking it. I'm communicating with the teachers. I'm raising hell when I have to, sometimes even to her detriment, but I'm there. And they don't expect that. And they're always shocked when we take an active role in their lives as if we're not supposed to.
Yeah.
And that's the part that bothers me the most. It's almost like, why are you here? Don't you know that you're supposed to be running the street or da-da-da-da? And I'm like, well, I can do that too, but I'm going to do this first. You know, I mean, don't get it twisted. You've got to be well-rounded. You know, I mean, in this life, you've got to be well-rounded. Talk about that.
Go ahead, bro.
But I'm gonna let George comment. Go ahead. I'm going to let George comment on it.
This is something that, I guess to put it in perspective, I'll answer the question with a question. Do you think a white father would have to experience, for example, what Trayvon Martin's father had to experience? That should help to put things in context. When that situation happened, that was one of the things that
that happened really close to here too.
It happened in Sanford. I was in law school in Orlando at the time, so it was right there.
It's right there, yeah.
That really, really like shook me to my core. Like, man, I'm at that age now where I want to have kids soon.
Yeah.
I don't want to have to tell my little boy like, hey, don't wear a hoodie. Don't do this. Don't do that. Mind you, for other kids, other races, It's perfectly fine. As a black father, you have to take a bit more into consideration. I think as a minority, period, you have a lot more to take into consideration. Absolutely. You have to make sure you push education much harder, because that's one of the main issues that we have.
Right.
You have to make sure that you teach them about finances, because that's another issue in the black community. So these are things, as a black man, as a black father, I know I have to go above and beyond. I recently had a Facebook post asking people about different ways to invest for my kids, whether I should do life insurance or if I should do Florida prepaid. There's different things that
529s. Yeah.
I want to make sure that I have in place for my kids that aren't expected of a black man, of a black father. I want them to be above and beyond everyone else. I'm trying to, I guess, unfortunately, my above and beyond is just evening out the playing field a bit, is what it seems like.
Yeah. I had the same conversation this morning with my daughter on the way to camp. Same conversation. Yeah. You got to work 5 times as hard just to be where they are.
Yeah.
And I could see her 9-year-old mind trying to process that, and I'm like, you may not get it all right now, but as the years go by, it'll start clicking a little bit more and a little bit more. And I can, we just talked about not seeing color. Yeah. She's truly one of those kids, and I think because kids are so innocent, like it doesn't matter where she goes, like she's gonna gravitate to whoever's open. It doesn't matter, and she's gonna rock with whatever.
It's a beautiful thing about kids.
Whoever, and both of them are like that. And that 5-year, my lady's 5-year-old is much more innocent in the sense that she hasn't really been jaded that much yet. But she's getting ready into kindergarten, so that I think is going to change because kids are cruel.
Yeah.
Kids are cruel these days. But I think that was a great point that you mentioned, and there was a post the other day. It talked about the one of the youngest black African American women to own a McDonald's, and in the article it talked about how many years it would take for us to catch up to the generational wealth that's already been built by our counterparts.
And these are things that we don't hear about in school, as far as building your credit. Until I started deciding that I wanted to buy a car, buy a house, buy things like that, and seeing how important all that stuff was, I had no idea. Stuff like that isn't taught, but I'm gonna make sure.
Building credit is also interesting because not only is it something that our society values, but we end up valuing this in a different way, to the point where I've asked people, like, would you date someone and they declare bankruptcy?
I've heard that, yeah.
And they're like, nah. Like, so that's interesting.
That's unfortunate,
right?
But,
I do want to say something though. So last week I was at where I went to undergrad, UNCG, and 120 Hispanic kids, right, in North Carolina from around the state came to talk about college readiness. Really amazing, beautiful experience. And they were on the show, and all these children talked about like racist experiences that they've had. People telling them, you're not from this country, speak English, like just ranges of things. And while I'm not a dad or I'm not a parent, just hearing these stories from so many kids, right, which is stories that probably a lot of us can relate to at being that age or younger, hearing and just experiencing racist things. Like, I can't even imagine what it would be like to be in y'all's position, to having to prepare your children for. I hated hearing the stories that these children had to say, because that was their experience. I hated hearing that they've experienced this. So I can't even imagine what it's like, especially as also little girls who also have to face sexism, right? And face all these, it is like, I don't even know I wouldn't even know where to begin. I don't even know. Like, what do y'all think about?
It's kind of like the old like, with privilege comes responsibility. So it's a huge joy. It's a blessing to have a child, but with that comes a responsibility that you wouldn't fathom in any other circumstance. Because not only, since we brought the whole thing about, minorities versus white fathers, and all, just so we already have the burden of leaving our homes as brown men every day, period. Yeah. And now we're introducing these young people into the world as well. I mean, it takes you back to that first moment when you found out, because you're excited, but you're frightened. You're excited for the possibilities, for the things that you can expose them to, for the things that you can, provide to them. But you're frightened at sometimes the experiences that they're going to have to go through to achieve and be able to benefit from those things.
So we have a really powerful question. I think it's a great follow-up to what we're talking about. It's how do we not pass that burden to our children? They can enjoy their unique culture but not feel victimized by this world. That's a question. And is this a utopian idea, or is it a true possibility? Because I've heard this a lot from people where it's like, if we talk to our children about this, then we're in a way creating this victimized type of mentality. And I get what they're saying, but also there's also another component to it that it's your children have to be aware.
It's real life, yeah.
Yeah, this is real life.
Yeah.
I think that's a great question.
It kind of is utopian. Ideally, one day we'll get to the point, hopefully, if we're teaching our kids right now and things are actually even, the playing field is level, one day there might be a time where we don't have to worry about that and push as hard, but we're not there yet. I don't feel we're even close to it.
Yeah. I mean, exposure. I mean, I think to the first part, the balance is exposure, because I think all too often in minority communities, what we've seen is kind of like a mindset of that victim mentality, like, oh well, no, I can't afford to do this and I can't afford to go there or take them. And you would be surprised at some of the smallest things that you take your children to expose them to and allow them to see that, hey, you know what? Society says that I'm different, but my parents are showing me I can go here, I can do this, I can experience some of the same things. So I think it's about exposure and a balance of that. They have to know some pieces of where we've come from, the day-to-day struggles, but not slighting them of the endless possibilities, I think is huge.
And I don't even know if, because I love what you're saying, and I don't even know if it's a victimizing thing. It might just be a fear thing, because kind of what you were saying is that exposure, like exposing children to these spaces, but sometimes we don't expose them because we're scared. We might not want them to go through what we went through. We might not want them to experience some type of negative backlash.
I think all scared the same. I think because we're still playing victim. Because, you know, when you're a victim, it comes from a sense, you stay there because it's a sense of fear. So I think it's still all one and the same. I think it's the same mindset, you know, oh, well, you know, what if, and like, because one of the things, I think one of the big, it's like, what if we fail?
Yeah.
We're afraid to fail because society has told us that if we fail, then like that's like doom and gloom. But I mean, how else do you grow if you don't make mistakes? And I mean, I really like some of the commercials that we see. You know, we've seen recently when it talks about, you know, like you don't have to be great to be a good dad. Like kids don't see that. You know, they want you to be present. They want you to. You may not always get it right all the time. You know, my daughter is combing her hair. Like she was like, "Dad, you're killing me."
You comb her hair?
You know, sometimes I have to. You know, I have to. But it's gotten better, you know. So yeah, I failed the first few times. You know, she's in tears. Oh, this hurts. Yeah, my lady's like, you gotta hold it at the root, and I'm like, okay, I'm getting there. But you know, you fail to get better. And I think it's with anything else. The first time you probably change a diaper,
it was a little scary.
And I mean, I'm talking about like an explosive one. Like,
I got a few of those.
But then you get it. Like after a while, you can do it with your eyes closed, man.
Yeah.
Man, y'all making me want to adopt more. Still not have a kid.
It's a big responsibility.
But this is crazy, man. I'll be honest with you, man. Here, it's scary. Like but I think it's scary for so many different. I'm hearing y'all say it's scary, but like one thing might be like you got their safety, like. You gotta make sure they're this, they're that, but also you're sending this child into the world.
Yeah.
Like, I can't even imagine sending a kid to school. Like, is somebody gonna pick up my baby? Because if they do, I'm coming here, I'm fighting this little, I'm gonna fight an 8-year-old today. Like, like, what is that? Like, what is that even like?
Well, you've done it already, but for me, looking forward, like even going back to work. I recently went back to work. I was on paternity leave for 2 months.
That's what's up.
And that's big.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people in this country, they'll be lucky if they get a day.
Yeah. I mean, granted, it was a little rough pay-wise, but I mean, I had to do it with twins. I couldn't see myself leaving the missus home with 2 babies by herself. But going back to work and leaving them just, with the missus by herself to take care of 2 of them, it was like, man, is she gonna be okay? They're gonna be okay. Like, it's a lot of work because I know I was there helping. So having experienced that, I know that once it's time for them to go to school, that's gonna be a whole nother ball game right there. And the one thing I could say is just knowing, I mean, hey, I grew up, I did it. They have my genes, my fiance's genes. Like, if we made it through, they can make it through. It's a part of life. That's the one thing that I have to fall back on, I guess.
Yeah.
Someone was agreeing with you. She says, I agree with Mr. Gray Shirt. Schools nowadays hinder minorities when it comes to exposing them to the different possibilities available in college, education, career paths, finances, and more. Can agree with you.
Yeah, that's what's up. Like
Duke is saying A5. Duke Carmel's on
my
here.
LB.
Yeah,
man. Yeah, like rule of 72. I was talking to somebody about some financial stuff today. Family friend who has long handled like our life insurance stuff or whatever, and rule of 72. And I know a lot of people who went to school and they deal with money, and they don't teach you like rule of 72.
What is that?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know what that is.
I mean,
glad you asked.
Yeah,
I didn't know either.
Well, yeah, and,
I guess we're those people that don't teach you that.
And, I mean, I'll probably botch it, but it's pretty much just saying, like, for instance, you have 3 different tiers of percentages of where your money can grow. So say if we put it in a bank, you've got 3%, 6%, 9%. And typically in banks, we don't even get 3% interest rate anymore for the most part. But that money at the lowest end, every 20 years, it would double. Well, as you progress in that 6%, it would be every 12 years. And at the 9%, it would be every 6 years. And the rule of 72 just pretty much says that you do some calculations, and it's pretty much one of those things that's kind of been, again, like I said, I was going to mess it up. It's kind of been hidden from the minority folks. It's definitely worth looking into. Everybody who's tuning in.
Rule of 72. Y'all look it up.
Speak to some people. Check it out. We've got to start investing. We've got to do that. We start talking about closing that wealth gap.
Yeah.
It has to happen. I mean, here I am, 38. I'll be 40 soon, and there's still things I'm trying to, play catch up on because, growing up with a single mom, it was just like, hey, this is what I need to get to tomorrow. Like,
we got a financial advisor right here in the house.
Rule of 72.
Menex saying, rule of 72 has to do with how long it would take to double your money depending on how much money you have.
Right. So 20 years, 6 years. 12 years.
Definitely gonna look into that.
I had part of it. We appreciate that.
Yeah.
Financial.
Menex 22.
Menex 22. Big ups.
Yeah. So we got about 15 minutes left in the show. Again, if y'all, I see a lot of new folks have been tuning in. Please feel free to ask questions, post comments. So I am curious, knowing that, especially like today's political climate, things are so much more in our face.
Yeah.
All these things have been happening for like a long time, right? But things are so much more in our face. So are there ever times where you're like, man, you know what? Maybe I shouldn't have had children. Like a type of regret in order to save them, just from the way the world is.
For me, no. I'm a realist, but I'm also still very optimistic, and I know the possibilities and the chances of good things and of progress coming, and just them being here, knowing that they're little me's, like they're gonna have my will, my desire to succeed. Knowing that, that helps kind of limit the fear of the world, because I mean, we're living in that world right now too, and we're here, we're all striving, succeeding. So I mean,
right,
it's possible.
Yeah.
I just have to make sure that they know that it's possible.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think it's by design anyway. I mean, it could have possibly ended up being your children. They weren't mine, but they were gonna get here regardless. I feel like it's always a bigger plan. And we don't always like the navigation of that plan. but there's a plan, and so what will be, and so I never regretted having children and being in this environment. And like just this past year, one of the things that I enjoyed seeing with my daughter was that in school they were talking about things that were relevant, not just to society as a whole, but that were relevant to our immediate community, things that she could relate to. She's coming home looking at current events and articles that meant something to her. And teachers were embracing that, and they were teaching that, and they were educating them on that. So, I think because of the day and age we live in now, those things are possible.
Yeah. So maybe a final question would be, what do you think makes a great dad? I came with the questions tonight. I came with the questions tonight.
That's a good one.
But before that one, we have another question. So y'all can think about that one. Ashley said, how do you feel about teachers being armed?
I work in law enforcement. I think it's crazy. Like I said, my daughter's about to turn 10, but she is really, you can sit down and have a conversation with her like she's 13 or 14. And I remember my daughter's school is probably maybe 15 minutes from Stoneman Douglas. And she was like, Dad. And so they locked their school down as well.
Yeah, that's close.
Wow.
And for several months after, she talked about like not really being able to sleep, about thinking about the possibility of something happening at her school. Mm-hmm. And even now, sitting here, talking about it, I kind of tear up a little bit because I'm still having to drop my daughter off to school every day, knowing that she's having those thoughts. And I think, it just kind of takes us from bad to worse. You put people on campus armed with more guns, more weapons, some of the similar weapons that were used, or exact same weapons that were used in some of these mass attacks. That plays a toll on our kids. And on the flip side of that, I had a close childhood friend who used to teach at Boyd Anderson High School right here in Oakland Park, Florida. And he went out there and he was talking to students. He works for supervisor of elections now here in Broward County. And the students there weren't moved at all because it was the norm for them. They weren't moved. And that's equally disheartening because they're so desensitized. But I don't agree with it. I don't think they should. To answer your question, absolutely not. I don't.
Personally, I'd prefer armed security, enhancing, more security guards and having people that trained, have their permits, things like that, or cops. Maybe get some retired cops off duty. Like teachers, no. My fiance is a teacher, and I'm sure she would say the same thing.
It's
Teachers
crazy.
with guns doesn't seem like a good idea.
We actually had an episode about this, and Jason Flores, another brother, was on here. We were talking about how this is a systemic issue, in the type of way that when you see who are usually the shooters in these schools, I think it very much relates to race, very much relates to social class. It relates to being a male, like the way men are socialized in this world. So these are such deep, complicated issues, and security guards are, I think, just a Band-Aid to a huge wound that we have, but maybe our best Band-Aid, because we've also seen how horrible security guards have been. There was a video that went viral about a little boy who was autistic who was handcuffed to a chair, and he was like 7.
Yeah.
Wow. But it's usually who are usually security guards, again, males, like.
Right.
So there's something there, I think, to be addressed.
I agree.
So we have another difficult question, man. One of my big sisters, Amber, she's AK actually.
What's up, fam?
So she's saying, as a father, how do you feel about your daughter navigating this world now that you're more aware of sexual assault through the Me Too movement? These questions, y'all ain't playing with these questions tonight. Y'all, okay.
Scroll back.
Here. So, As a father, how do you feel about your daughter navigating this world now that you're more aware of sexual assault through the Me Too movement?
You want to go? You want to take a stab at it? I'll start, then I'm going to pass it off. I mean, I think the fact that women are becoming more vocal is definitely encouraging. That's a good thing. It's shedding light on it so that, you know, things can change. Men are knowing, hey, I can't get away with this
You're
anymore.
also an attorney, so you see these things, right?
That definitely is, I'm looking at it from the positive. I think that's encouraging. That we're at a time and a place where social media is helping. People have their voices now. They're not as afraid as once upon a time. So these things aren't getting just swept under the rug like they once were. And I'm hoping that, God forbid, if anything were to happen to my daughter, she would speak up, let me know about it, let the world know about it. So as far as her navigating, I think things are getting a bit better just because of the awareness of it.
I think one thing that Dee's been saying all night is that so when I told George about this topic tonight, he said, "Yo, you gotta have Dwayne on tonight."
Yeah.
Dwayne's super dad.
Super dad.
And I mean, I just admire you for everything that you do with your daughter. All the pictures, it's so beautiful. But you've really been expressing tonight too that you have a friendship with your daughter.
Yeah.
Like the fact that she could come up to you and tell you that, "Hey, Dad, I got some spots." That says, and she was so cool about it. Her coolness is a reflection of the relationship that you built with her.
Yeah, that's impressive.
So I think that kind of goes to, God forbid, of course, that this would ever happen, but I think this friendship with your daughter is such an important kind of factor.
I think that's huge. I mean, I think, you know, initially when I first heard that question, I went back to one of the very first things I said. You know, it's that initial onset of fear, because you know that it's out there. You know, when you think about it. When I think about my mom, you know, like all these things were going on, you know, even during those times, it's always happened. So, you know, I think the plus is now knowing that they know they have a voice, they know they have an audience, and that, you know, they can speak freely and they don't have to be victimized. But I just think it's about awareness, and I still think it's about presence. I mean, because I think if your daughter knows that you're there, you know, I'm with you, ride or die. I'm halfway there with you when you're wrong. You know, I'm there. I like
that.
It helps ease it. You know.
Oh man, this has been a powerful show. People keep on saying that this has been a great man. Y'all, this is y'all, man.
Enjoy it.
This is y'all. So the final question would be, and if you missed part of tonight's show or anything, I'd like to rewatch it. This will be posted to the Instagram story, and I'll also be posting it on YouTube, so y'all can watch it and rewatch it. Because I do think it's been a powerful show. What do you think makes a good dad? Because there are some people out there watching tonight that might not have a father figure. So maybe even speak about the importance of maybe getting like a male role model, or finding a strong, positive male role model. That can be like, doesn't have to be a father figure, but that can be a good male presence in your life. Because I know there's a lot of people out there watching that might not have that. So what do you think makes a good father, but also just a strong male role model that someone can maybe go ask about? Hey, could you be one of my mentors? Could you be someone for me?
I'd have to say someone that leads by example, just carrying yourself in a certain light. I know for me, looking up to my dad, seeing the way he carried himself, the way he interacted, that definitely helped mold me. So I know going forward, I will always present myself in a certain manner. I'll go about things a certain way. I'll talk to people a certain way when my little ones are present. It's just about being mindful, just being that supporter, and just presenting a good example, essentially. You just want to be someone that they'll look up to at the end of the day. Letting them know that the impossible might just be possible.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think too, you know, just not giving in to what society says that you ought to be, or that you should be, or what they expect you to be. And I mean, don't be, you know, as if you're a young man and you need a mentor, don't be afraid to say that. Society has kind of told you that you have to be this certain type of man, and at the end of the day, we're all human. man, woman, we're human, and so as a young man, just like I think a big part of you being a man is being secure enough in yourself to say, I got it wrong, I need help. Asking for somebody to help bail you out, to help you when you're down, to not being afraid to say, hey, I got it wrong, like I have no idea what I'm doing. That's the only way that you grow, acknowledging your failures and your faults, and then picking up the pieces and then moving forward. So I just think we kind of all have to navigate our own paths and not let people dictate what road we're supposed to travel. Sometimes you're gonna get it wrong, and that's okay, but find your way back.
Man, well, man, I appreciate y'all, man.
We appreciate you.
I have to say this, man. So you two have been some of the from the jump, Woke Wednesdays, huge supporters of Woke Wednesdays, even when I didn't think it was anything. And I appreciate y'all, man. I appreciate y'all doing because we were supposed to do the show months ago.
Yeah.
And I also wanted to have you before the babies came along.
There was another episode. It was a law enforcement episode or a law episode.
Yeah, it was law, right?
Yeah.
But man, I appreciate y'all rocking with me from the jump. So thank you so much for being on the show tonight and dropping just knowledge, man, nuggets of knowledge. Everything you said tonight was just. I still don't want kids. I still doubt.
That'll change.
You might change.
Hey, man, who knows? Who knows?
You didn't find the right lady yet.
Who knows?
There's nothing like looking in the eyes of a little one, knowing that you made this person.
And that's wild, man.
I don't know if we want a little person.
Anyway. Good point. Good point.
That's funny, man.
In the merengue.
Hey, in a little. Man, well, I thank y'all so much for tuning in tonight. This is Woke Wednesdays. Next week, we have Dwight Bullard on the show.
Wow,
that's big time, man. Yeah. Big time. Just Democrat House of Representative. I think he was right.
Nice.
He was politician here in Florida. So thank y'all so much for tuning in tonight. See y'all next week.
All right, good
Take
people.
care. Everybody stay woke.
Later.
Thanks for tuning in.